It's a beautiful Thursday morning here in Alpharetta, Georgia, and it is time for the SCC over there in Europe. My name's Gormizer. Joining me on the desk here is Mifflin. And Mifflin, I know we have a lot of fun coming in. Again, 4 SCC sets throughout the day, 2 EU, 2 NA. I almost flipped them for some reason, and I don't know why in my brain they wanted to do that. But
I mean, you could have. It would have been wrong.
It would have been still true, but not like in the order they're happening. Europe is always
right.
first. And that's in our hearts and in the schedule. And I'm contractually obligated to say that because Hindu's European. He puts that. I don't know if you read that.
Not in my
fine print.
contract.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay,
and I
maybe
read
it was
it.
just mine. Maybe I didn't read mine well enough. I don't know. Either way, it's going to be pretty fun to watch these teams and how they're going to shake out this week. We're going to be watching the Scorpions take on the Ferrymen first, then a little later today watching the Ravens and the Wargs. And then, quick math, 2 days on Saturday, we're going to be watching the Mambo and the Gladiators. A little bit of a change-up from the usual Friday. So if you want to watch Mambo take on the Gladiators, that'll be before SBL starting Thursday. But the other two are going to get knocked out today. And again, this first one is going to be the Scorpions taking on the Ferrymen. Now, this is an interesting matchup to me, Mifflin. Scorpions, in week 1, I believe, having a pretty decent performance, being able to come out and actually 2-0 the Gladiators there. Unfortunately for them, going down 0-2 to the Highland Ravens, one of those teams that is still as yet undefeated. And so that is going to shake things up. Unfortunately for the Ferrymen, they've yet to find a win. But last week they played Hex Mambo, which is not a very easy team to go up against. And they had a very close loss, again, to the Ravens, another one of the undefeated teams. So a lot of kind of question marks about what we are going to be expecting out of both of them. I think they've both kind of showed a little bit of merits, both shown a little bit of weakness here. And the Scorpions specifically are a team that, making a couple of changes coming into this phase, at least feel like they're doing a lot better than what we've seen the Scorpions do in the past. And honestly, it's given me a lot of hope for them for the rest of the next, 3 weeks now.
But it's so early, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's hard to make grandiose sweeping statements on the excellency of this team based off of Phase 3, considering how early we are in Phase 3. This is only, week 3 of Phase 3. So, sure, they've had a decent performance so far with a 50% win rate. But from what I've seen so far, and I haven't had the opportunity to cast or watch these games in person because of events over at TwitchCon and being out sick last week. But from what I have seen, it's almost a refined style of what they've been trying to develop over the last 2 phases. Mm-hmm. It's consistently the same style of picks. They haven't necessarily over-adapted to the meta. It seems like they're still sticking with their standard just comfort pick selections. You'll have Rapio playing the same things he's been playing since the console days. Davey continually going towards some of his favorite selections as well, things like the Rom and the Heimdall. So what has been working or hasn't been working for them in the past has recently worked for them. But when you don't shift up your style, it allows these other teams to adapt to you. They can continually look back. There's plenty of data to study the exact strategies that this team has employed for going on an entire year now. I'd like to see them just play a little bit more so in line with everybody else. Just one time. Just one
time. And see what they could maybe provide with that, right? Well, maybe we'll get to see that today. You never really know. I'm excited, though, because the team they're going up against, and, you highlighted Rapio specifically, and like you said, playing a lot of things that we've kind of gotten used to Rapio playing. I'm excited for the jungle matchup for this one, because I think that while there's a lot of very interesting ones, I think looking over towards the Ferrymen, seeing Ice on the other side, like that matchup to me is very conducive to who's going to win this, because we've seen both of them step up for their teams. We've seen both of them have those really solid performances. And so in my mind, if you look away from the Scorpions and over towards the Ferrymen, it does come to this, this jungle question. Personally, I'm also just a big fan of Rotwin, and that's just generally as a support player, I think he's just really, really good. And it turns out that that's treated them pretty well. Even last week against the Mambo, they had some moments that honestly looked really, really solid. It's just, unfortunately, you're playing Hex Mambo, and those guys kind of been around the block a few times. And so they ended up doing really well. But if you look at the Ferrymen, Beazrael, you got Ice, you got Hawk, again, Rotwin on there, and Streak Up. You've got a lot of competitive experience. You've got a lot of competitive history, and a lot of players that know what they're doing.
Yeah, but the competition in Europe is so stiff, which is why it's surprising to see a team with this much pedigree struggle as much as they have in the past. Sure, they're upper middle pack or at times just upper seeded team, but as of now, Styx Ferrymen probably not doing as well as they might like to be doing. But you are right to bring up Ice and Rotwin in particular, not just because in my opinion, the meta and the game state is almost always dictated by the jungle support matchup, or those two roles in particular, for at least the first 15 or so minutes of the game. But because these two really are the end-all be-all for this team. When Ice is having a good game, the entirety of the Styx Ferrymen look good. When Rotwin is able to get active, leave lane early on, get involved in that mid 3v3, Styx Ferrymen look good. But when these two have a poor day, it really does reflect on the rest of the team. And that's not to say that they aren't flanked by amazing talent. Be Azriel, Streak Up, Hawk, all incredibly talented players. It's just they are so reliant on that aggressive two-man core of Ice and Rotwin that when they aren't there, when they aren't stepping up, and when they aren't able to perform at that highest level and make use of these leads, this team really does strike me as lacking in identity in how they want to play the macro. It really is a struggle for them to move in towards these objectives, to figure out which structures they want to fight around, unless those two are just dominating the map, which at times is a strength and at times is a weakness. But I would argue more often than not, Rotwin and Ice are both having good days. So the Styx Ferrymen as a whole, more often than not, are just having good days.
Yeah, which opens up, I guess, the question as to how they'll perform. Again, it's very rare and kind of impressive, but maybe not in the way they would like it, that they've actually fallen down 0-2 each time. And again, it's to the top two teams in the region so far. So when you're looking at the Scorpions, you know, I guess next week, Gladiators, Wargs, maybe those two are flopped and it's Wargs and Gladiators. But either way, it's going to be teams that are a lot more within their reach and a lot more, maybe let's quote-unquote, easily controlled by them. At least what we've come to expect from them. So we'll go into Picks and Bans game number 1 here. And it is going to be the Ferrymen first pick taking on the Scorpions. Lancelot, of all things, is the one that gets banned out. And we've seen, you know, like the Guan Yus, the Emojas, especially with these teams, you know, you have to start factoring in like your Fenrir's up against the Scorpions, things like that. Oh, where's Lancelot coming into the mix?
Early game aggression, I suppose. Flexibility between jungle and solo. Again, I haven't had the opportunity to watch too much of the SCC over the last couple weeks, so you got to keep me honest.
Yeah, you're right.
But as far as standard bans are concerned, yeah, Guan Yu, he's up there. You want to pick up a Fey Blast Hoops, you want to just dominate that mid-game portion or move into those objectives with phenomenal healing. That's one of the best gods in the game to do it right now, as well as the defense shred and constant initiation that he brings to a team. I've seen that Hades has been very successful at literally every section of play in SMITE, NA, EU, SCC, as well as the SPL. That god has seen a lot of value. As far as a Lancelot top ban overall, I just gotta assume the Aaru Scorpions have been dominating scrims with it, because that god, although strong, doesn't exactly strike me as top of the meta level strength.
Yeah, he's not. You don't go, all right, who do we gotta get rid of? That Lancelot guy's been a real thorn in our side lately. Gotta deal with him. It is going to be the Nemesis, then Yamoja. On the other side, a lot more like, I would argue, first off, standard in the Guan Yu and the Hades, then Tyr, who has been relatively standard all around. Khepri as well for this first pick. And Khepri, Mifflin, has been just an absolute menace in like not even the right circumstances, sometimes even in the wrong circumstances. Just that capability to keep your team alive, to give them a second life, just is so annoying when you're on the other side. I mean, you have to kill that guy again now.
Yeah, Khepri is probably bar none the most plug-and-play support in the game. There's not going to be a composition where you get a Khepri and you say, man, this Khepri just is not working with this team. Oh, man, Abduct just doesn't have any follow-up. Oh, the route from a range is just so difficult to use, or Scarab's Blessing is just not a great tool in some of these team fights. And because of that, not only is he a powerful pick, but he's also one of the best early-game support selections, just because really, there's not a whole lot of counter picks. You can pick up an Execute, an Achilles, a Thanatos, something along those lines, but if you're constantly forced to hold on to your own ultimate in order to deal with Scarab's Blessing, I would argue that's a strength in of itself. If you're forced to restrict how you want to play the game because a certain pick is on the map, that pick has value even if it isn't always finding the revive. Yeah. So huge fan of the Khepri very early on. Every single support in EU is very capable of playing it, so not only is it acting as a strong pick for yourself, but almost a secondary ban as well.
Yeah, right? It's just so incredibly helpful for you when you're able to lock that in. It's locked in alongside a Ratatosker and a Yu Huang. Rat we saw a lot of last week. I think adapting specifically stands out in my mind as someone who played it incredibly well. I remember equating it to just the style of play he was bringing with the Rat was exactly what you'd expect if he was playing Thor. He was just on Rat instead. Freya, Amuz and Cobb, and a Fafnir lock in, though, from the Scorpions. And, you know, Freya, AMC, we've seen on the rise. both like mainly in the SBL. It feels kind of like Warriors-esque from what we've been seeing a lot more lately. Fafnir just kind of goes hand in hand. You got 2 auto attackers. Feels like that just works out really well for him.
Lots of objective shred, lots of ability to move in towards those neutrals early game, or even if you are able to establish a lead, really helps out with that structure damage as well. Strong initiator from a range. Fafnir does all of that, but what Fafnir doesn't do incredibly well is he's not exactly the best peel god in the game. You're generally using that leap aggressively. You can use the disarm to help out your backline, but then you've only got that single target stun while you wait for the Draconic transformation as well. So I do like Fafnir, and it does synergize well with both Freya and AMC, but both Freya and AMC are also very immobile gods that are going to struggle against a dive composition. And as of now, sure, it's only Ratatasker making up the core of the dive for the Styx Ferrymen, now flanked by Bellona. That's pretty useful as well. But by nature of having a Khepri, you got to deal with the rat dive twice, and he's going to be very devil may care with that dive. He can just go in with the ultimate, doesn't really need to concern himself about that return damage, and just says, I've got a safety net, you might be able to kill me, but I'm going to apply enough damage to you and likely get a revive that you won't be able to join the fight, and I'm just going to be back in it.
And you know, I was going to ask you about the Ishtar just to get your thoughts on it. We've seen it a couple of weeks now, and like slowly, like not fully in the meta, but she's done well when she's been played, and maybe things like that. And then Bakasura got locked in, and it kind of derailed my entire thought process on it. With the Camazotz, you have to imagine it's going into the jungle. I can't imagine Bakasura going most places other than the jungle anyway. What's it going to bring here for the Scorpions? We jump into game number 1. If I'm looking at this jungle matchup, which is what I was doing a little bit earlier, what's the Bakasura got that nobody else could have had?
A lot of early game farm, I suppose. Bakasura has been doing Bakasura stuff for as long as Bakasura has been around. His main method of play hasn't really changed. You've got more movement speed thanks to that passive, as so long as you're able to keep it stacked up by killing these minions, or getting last hits on minions rather, and you're able to clear the jungle incredibly quickly, which should allow you to tick over to level 5. Anybody's forced to use those beads, you're able to lock them down pretty easily with the Regurgitate. So Bakasura has a very strong mid-game power spike, and if he decides to go down that crit tree, which we've seen in the past, a lot of Wind Demon Bakasuras, a lot of Rage Bakasuras, then you've got pretty decent late game as well. But the concern is Bakasura only deals damage with those auto attacks, and you've already got an auto attack heavy composition. You've leaned into that because of the Fafnir, but with a disarm on the other side, I almost would have just preferred to see an ability-based jungler, so that when your teammates can't auto-attack and you can't auto-attack, you're at least able to return some of that damage.
It does feel like this is going to also, not just the disarm, but maybe even itemization, right? Like you can get yourself like a Witchblade, all of a sudden they're attacking less. Get Height of the Nemean. Like some of these items, they're a lot more niche, but like
Midgard.
It feels like they're going to be super helpful, especially Midgard. Oh my god, against a Bakasura.
Yep.
Slow that guy down, essentially counter out what I assume will be a Hasten Katana. That feels like it's going to be a pretty, let's say, potentially easy route for the Ferrymen to go in terms of defense.
Yeah, I think so. With his style of composition being so one-note from the Aaru Scorpions, you really just got to be thinking about standard counter itemization. It's almost like when a team drafts 2-3 healers, you think, okay, well, we're just going to get Ankh, Contagion, Pestilence, Brawler's Beatstick, Divine Ruin, and those items might not all be core at all times, but because a team has really leaned into one individual style for their comp, it really finds a whole lot of value. So I will be keeping my eyes on the Styx Ferrymen and how they decide to itemize going forward. As of now, though, should be a standard start from just about everybody. You don't really need to worry about too much of that until second or third item.
Maybe a little bit of aggression in the jungle? No, it doesn't look like Ice is going to go for too much. It's kind of difficult to fight into 2 assassins, even if you have a Bellona beside you. And unable to steal away that blue buff. So that's going to be a little bit of a disengage on right. Needs a disengage over here on left. And this is something I think that with Ishtar, especially even with the buffs Freya got, you have to talk about the fact that the clear between an Ishtar Khepri is just so much better than a Freya Fafnir. It feels like the pressure on this side of the map should be very easily going over to the Ferrymen.
It should, as far as wave clear is concerned, but around level 5, level 6, I would imagine the Freya and the Fafnir should bring a good deal of fight potential, as we see a small skirmish around this purple buff. This has been the new standard. Just be annoying.
Yeah, be annoying. The most you can do is exactly that, right? Just deal the damage necessary from Preds. Rotwin holding on to that hog. Maybe for the next buff, I guess. And instead, it's a nice little steal from the Scorpions. And look, little bits of experience. Like you said, if your playstyles be annoying, that's about as annoying as it can get. Davies got his purple. He's going to be able to secure that no problem. And the Ferrymen are going to have to deal without.
Yeah, just not sure why Rotwin bought the hog if he's not going to use it there. It's a concerning decision, to be sure. Hog is really about making sure you get that second rotation of your buff, so you can control that timer and not allow for potential jungle rotations. Junglers really do struggle to get to that second purple buff, but by the time third purple buff spawns up, junglers can start getting involved. If they've got timer on yours, all of a sudden it's a significant advantage over to whoever's able to steal it away, which is why we used to see that hog pick up so consistently, even at the SPL level.
Yeah.
Just surprised to see him hold on to it. That's literally what you buy it for.
Yeah, unfortunate. I mean, maybe there's going to be a circumstance here in a couple minutes that we'll see and we'll think back on it.
He's going to use it for third purple buff, and he's going to get it.
And it's going to be, that one I'm going to keep my eyes on, just because otherwise you're just kind of hanging out. Actually, I think just straight up sold the hog to buy Thebes faster.
Surely not.
Okay. That's the kind of position we're in. I guess. Well, I mean, you know what? A little bit of gold back, a little bit gone to the ether.
Well, you want the Thebes.
Who do you think collects the tax on sold gold? Like, if you buy an item and sell it, who gets that extra gold? Who does it go to? Ajax?
Well, no, it just goes to the store. Whoever runs the store.
Oh.
Yeah, because like.
Is Denton? Does the Cyclops run the store? Who runs the
Look,
Smite
man,
store? Who's selling these
Smite
items?
lore is not my strength. Okay, I mean
yeah,
they're fighting over something on the battleground. I don't know about the economics of it.
Yeah, good point. Good point. But he's got his Thebes now, Mifflin.
That's right.
No hog necessary, and so that's going to start stacking up for Rotwin. Third round of purple buff coming up, and I was wondering if we were going to maybe see some jungle aggression. I guess that kind of brings me to this point, which is like Rat feels like he can get aggressive early on. Can Bakasura do the same? I mean, he's got the golden katana now, golden blade. Does that balance it out? I mean, I don't really think of Bakasura as somebody that I expect to see like in your lane for the first 12 minutes.
Well, it's pretty simple. If the diamond is filled up next to Aprillium's name, he can get aggressive.
Yeah.
Like this.
Well, he's going to throw out.
Well, not exactly like
now
this.
Has to get away. Nice little heal, nice little leap. There's a stun follow-up from Azrael, though. Hammer smack is good. The damage isn't good enough afterward. There's going to be a missed knockup from Ice. Great leap from Preds, and then a good stun follow-up. Forces Rotwin to use the ult stinger. Falls down in mid. Some damage returned back onto Preds. No one's going to die, though. A lot of flare. And some really low health bars on the supports, but they're going to be able to scramble out of this one.
Yeah, that Bakasura ultimate so early on in the engagement was a bit wishful. Concerned about the greater Scorpion, really wanted that global farm for the team, was willing to dedicate that ultimate, but had he held on to it and utilized it in the team fight, likely would have gone much further in the Scorpion's favor. Fortunately for the Styx Ferrymen, they've got Rotwin, and although Rotwin was out of position, we talked about it in P's and B's, 2 lives to play with means you've got 2 mistakes that you're allowed to make before you're actually punished for it.
True.
And fortunately for Rotwin, it was only 1 mistake made. He's able to work his way out of there with relative ease. No real relic usage in that engagement either, so opportunities for a fight will be hard to come by, even if we are waiting on a couple of these ultimate cooldowns.
I'm also going to keep watching. Well, this, like a hawk, I'm watching Hawk. I don't know why I wanted
Nice,
to,
dude.
I don't know why I wanted
No, that
to
was
say
good.
that so badly, but it happened. And it's just this Yu Huang, right? I just think that we've seen this rise in priority. I think Pagon specifically stands out just because of how many like free fire ults we've gotten to see connect and be very impactful on the Dragons there. But I think Hawk, especially, but really anybody playing this pick, has that potential, right? That kind of free setup that it could just happen in the middle of the lane at any given time. Now that people are more comfortable with the pick, it definitely feels like that's a really good pressure point. I mean, between Ice and Hawk here to really kind of ramp up some mid lane pressure.
Yeah, even though Hawk has got the potential to displace enemies without setup, setup is not something the Styx Ferrymen are lacking for. Everybody on the team has got some form of stun or some form of CC that should allow Hawk to have a little bit more time to line up these ultimates. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Hawk just kind of wait it out, maybe wait for that dunk from Ice or the exact same thing from Azrael and abduct from Rotwin, burn away some of these beads, played a little bit safer. Because when we talk about Yu Huang, it's not about that early game pressure. Sure, levels 1 and 2, he's got pretty strong clear, pretty high kill potential. But levels 3 through 9, 10, yeah, you're generally getting slightly outscaled by whoever you're playing against until that latest portion of the match where Yu Huang all of a sudden just, again, is able to 100 to 0 the majority of the cast.
Yeah, I just kind of, like, it sometimes even accidentally has too much damage. You just throw out, the Phoenix Fire, and it hits a little harder than you expect. Nice little steal from hi-rez on the blue buff. Azriel trying to make sure that they can get out of here. Aprillium's hanging out in the area. The Camazotz as well, being aggressive. Gunter gets pulled back. Hawk throwing out some damage. There's going to be an ult, not connecting this time. Aprillium forces out the ult, 2 for 1. Maybe 2 for 2, and Aprillium might not escape here. No, Azriel is getting aggressive, needs the leap, gets the stun, gets the kill, but they lose Rotwin for first blood, just a second ahead. Still, 2 for 1 trade. Hawk needs to get out of this, needs some help. Ends up being 2 for 2. Jungle and mid for mid and support.
Just a battle of who's going to dive and who's going to find more value on the dive. But this time around, an equal trade, but first blood only goes one way. But in spite of it, really is still only about 700 gold separating these two teams. Still a dead even match, regardless. Experience roundup, slight advantage over to the duo lane of Aaru Scorpions, about 1 level between the two of them. Otherwise, 1 level advantage to Azriel on the other side in the soul lane. As of now, I don't think either team really can look towards an objective to force an engagement, but if one could, it should likely be the Ferrymen. You don't want to allow this Scorpions draft to really start gearing up towards that late game. All these auto attackers just going to get further strengthened by this Fafnir. All of them very dependent on itemization as well. AMC, Bakasura, Freya, very, very dependent on how much gold they're able to acquire. You're only going to continue to acquire more as the game ticks onward. Whereas Styx Ferrymen, a lot of their strengths have come already. I'm keeping my eyes on Ice. We haven't seen too many proactive ultimates from him as of yet. I'd like to see him starting off some of those fights with those to set up for his team. Because for the most part, what we've seen from Styx Ferrymen is reactive play. It's Rotwin going in, taking a whole lot of damage, ulting himself, and then the rest of Styx Ferrymen kind of folding in on it itself, trying to peel out for their support. Why not start the fight? You can take the fight to these auto attackers, catch them off balance, and maybe get some sort of advantage before they're allowed to itemize.
Yeah, because even with the stuff, at least that we said, for the Ferrymen that could help them deal with auto attackers late game, you're still dealing with 3 auto attackers late game, and a Camazotz on top of that. Like, just a lot of carry potential from the Scorpion. Speaking of which, taking a Pyromancer and doing it relatively early on to get themselves a nice little bit of a cushy lead. You had mentioned it was about 600 gold earlier. They're pushing themselves towards 2,000. They'll see if they can maybe get over that bump and get a nice, comfortable lead. 11 minutes into the game, feeling pretty solid about things, but I very much am on the same page with you, right? Ferrymen, in my mind, need to be more proactive. You got a Ratatosker. That's a really, really good engage tool. Hell, you've got a Bologna, and we've seen Azriel rotating out of lane. It wouldn't be too far-fetched to maybe want to see a big fight happen. Just involving the two of them and not using it as chase down, but instead using it to kick things off. I also think it's going to be, and maybe this is just some future patch talk because my brain's on it, but like seeing that Pyromancer go down, seeing this Gold Fury, we're playing on 9-9 right now. 9-10 came out on Tuesday. And I want to know, like, how do you feel about those two objectives specifically being like easier to kill in the early game to make it so that it's like, I think the exact note said, so you don't need a full team wipe to take them down.
I mean, I never really thought the objectives were particularly difficult to kill. Generally pretty easy so long as you can find 10-15 seconds alone with it, which is part of the macro game, but being able to have a little bit of an easier time early on does force teams to be a bit more aware of what's happening on the map. Someone's not in lane for 5 seconds. You have to concern yourself with where are they? Probably the Pyromancer, probably the Gold Fury. As far as Gold Fury getting easier, I think that probably is for the best. Yeah. Pyromancer was just like the only feasible objective for the first 8-9 minutes. Now you could get back to those early Gold Furies. Well, not now.
Well, not now. Yeah, but when we're on 9-10, I wouldn't mind seeing it. For something that spawns at 5 minutes, it does take an awful long time before we get to see anything. Even there, look at that. It's so menacing in that Gold Fury bit. Maybe a little bit of an opportunity. Rotwin. Nope. Whooped out of the air. Davey with good good self-peel, makes sure that nothing's going to come of that. Fafnir, Bakasura, AMC, a lot of focus over here on the left-hand side from the Scorpions. And they are going to opt to start up the Gold Fury. It's going to get spotted out pretty quickly. Hawk streak up, Rotwin in the neighborhood. And that is enough. I mean, it felt like it was going to be risky for the Scorpions, and they decided to call it right then and there, not even try to pull it.
Yeah, when the Scorpions get spotted out on objectives like that, they don't only have to concern themselves with the people that are immediately in front of them, but also Ice is almost always in range thanks to that ultimate, that global presence. Very strong in situations like that. You don't have standard mage on the side of the Aaru Scorpions either, so if you're looking for a confirmation battle, it's not one that you're often going to win up against a Yu Huang. So I think right decision to heat check the Styx Ferrymen, and also the correct decision to go ahead and let it go.
Ult from Davey seems more like a safety thing more than an actual I'm going to get something done thing. That is Freya just trying to survive. Rats over here. I thought we were about to see something explode, but it turns out it's just going to fall into a very similar pattern. 2,000 gold, well, 1,900-ish, still separating the two in favor of the Scorpions. So that Gold Fury looks tantalizing if you're the Ferryman. Being able to pick that up just to get the gold, get the lead, maybe kind of stifle the Scorpions a little bit would be massive for them. And also worth mentioning, of the items that we mentioned at the very beginning of the game, we now do have the Witchblade pickup from Rotwin, so that's going to help a little bit. And some of these engagements just slowing down someone like Aprillium, someone like Gunter or Davey. When it comes to their attack speed, Root, Phoenix Fire is good. Ice is going to be going in. Some decent damage, but a great save from Rotwin. Keeps the jungler alive. Up onto the tree goes Ice. Does not feel like he's going to go in. Jumps to the branch a little aggressively. But yeah, then immediately falls back. Health bar too low to try and mess with. And once again, Mifflin, we end up in a lot of damage area, but not a lot gained.
It's been a repeated just methodology this match where Aaru Scorpions start up every single one of these fights. Every single time it's reactive ultimate from Rotwin. It's Ice using his ultimate once the fight has already started up. I would just once like to see them initiate with that global presence.
Yeah.
Jump onto that back line. Isolate Gunter. Isolate Davey. Try and force some of those resources out a little bit earlier on. Because if the Aaru Scorpions are allowed to choose the fight, there's a reason they're choosing those fights.
Yeah, this one's been chosen, and they're able to get the Gold Fury. Azrael uses the ult a little early if it was going for a steal. And, well, uses it right on time for the stun, but not able to find a secure afterward. Preds even walks away alive, so they don't lose anything in the process. If you're looking at the Scorpions, it's a Pyromancer earlier. It's a Gold Fury now. It's their first blood, and it's starting to get to about 3,000 gold. And like you said, they're the ones who have been choosing every single fight so far. And they got themselves an Obelisk. It just feels like everything's coming up Scorpion.
Yeah, add a greater Scorpion onto that, add defensive positioning around the Pyromancer, add the fact that the Relic situation for Styx Ferrymen isn't exactly looking great right now, experience and gold advantage over to the Chaos team as well. I think the Aaru Scorpions are in a very good position where it's continue aggression. Now the ball is legitimately in their court. The Aaru Scorpions have the onus on the map with a significant lead, and with neutral objectives already spawned up and a team composition that's built for burning down those neutrals, I think it's just a matter of get to the objective.
Rotwin in trouble. Stop me if you've heard that one before. Doesn't have to use the ult this time to stay alive, though. It's going to be a disengage from the Scorpions. Preds has to ult leap and is able to avoid the pull. But then a great stun, great pull back, and they just need the last little bit of damage. There it is from Hawk. Gets the kill and gets the opening that the Ferryman needed to surge forward. No stun onto Aprillium. So the Ferrymen are going to have to fall back. The Pyromancer seems a lot more open than it was a second ago.
Completely full HP bars on the sides of the Ferrymen. This should go their way.
But there's going to be Camazotz coming in. Rotwin forced to ult just to stay alive. The Pyromancer has not been leashed just yet. It's still up in the air. So who's going to get it? The Scorpions are going to take that one away. They still kill Rotwin in the process. And the chase is on around the map. Hawk seems to be the one in most danger. There's going to be a boing forward from the Camazotz and an easy pickup to be able to get a double kill. And just a clean fight for the Scorpions.
Major fumble from Styx Ferryman there. It was a disconnect on the team. Some people saying, hey, this is a great fight. We've got a numbers advantage. We know for a fact Davies on the left-hand side. Or best case scenario, it's 4 versus 3, and that's exactly what it was. Go in. You see the pull from Rotwin. No follow-up immediately. Rotwin forced down, and From there, objective held on to 10%. Everybody's saying, well, oh no, Rotwin's already fallen. We got to start to reset. But by that time, it was already too late.
Ult for ult trade out in the duo lane. I was wondering if anything was going to happen out of it. But yeah, like you said, already too late for him now. Man, an unfortunate spot. The only kill they get in all of that was onto Pretz. And while earlier that 2v2 feels like it maybe favors them a little bit because, you know, it's mid support for mid jungle, it's hard to argue losing that many people to more and getting just Preds on the other side plus 2 objectives, essentially.
We don't even have to do like mental maths. I mean, look at the chart.
Yeah, just look at the
chart just looks good for the Scorpions there.
It's literally 7,000 gold.
I wonder if that was a bit of a trade back and forth. No, that was a blanket statement win for the Aaru Scorpions off the back of getting owned at the beginning of the fight.
Yeah, it turns out that's just good for you. When you win, and then you win outright, and also you get all the things that give you good money.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a 2-level lead in the jungle. 2 levels there for support. 1 level only for Davey. And we have not seen Streak Up or Davey leave this lane. And I guess that's not uncommon, but like, I'm kind of waiting for when we're going to get the Freya and or Ishtar into the mix. Because at this point, normally we're talking about, oh, well, you know, like Freya early game, maybe not as impactful as a Hunter. Going to need a couple more items. We're just going to get a full late game Freya. I mean, you're already level 18 if you're Davey. You've got 2.5 rings, almost finishing the last one, plus the Bancrofts. Like, Davey's in a really great spot to join these team fights and just body people with damage.
Here's the thing about how in 20 minutes a triple goose egg is just about the perfect slash line for a Freya. It is.
Yeah.
You could ask for better. You could ask for a couple kills, but 0-0-0 means you've been allowed to free farm for the entire match, and a Freya that's done that is a Freya that's in a very good position for the rest of the match. Already a slight 2-level lead over Streak Up on the other side. But I've got a question for you, Gore. This Odysseus bow in 3rd slot for Streak Up, is that standard? I feel like I haven't seen a whole lot of oboe in the ADC builds.
It feels like it's been like on the rise, right? Like I've been seeing it half and half. It's very similar. Like we've seen some different starts. I think my brain immediately wants to go to Cyclone to, I guess, F to pay respects in chat, but also
yikes. Too soon.
I feel like we've been seeing like some dominance thrown out there. Like there's
I've
definitely
seen a lot
been
of the
like
dominance.
Like just like some of these items that are getting like sprinkled in there every now and then. And so I don't know that I would say it's like quote unquote standard, but it's not uncommon enough. I think that that it's bad, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean,
well, actually, you can say whether or not you think it's bad. I'm just saying it's definitely happened.
I mean, considering the positioning that the Aaru Scorpions will likely take in the team fights, as Gold Fury is pulled out, we have to hold that thought. Preds has stolen a lot more before and continues to do so. Easy pickup for the Aaru Scorpions around the Gold Furies. They push their lead to the 10,000 mark. The point I was trying to make was the divers of the Aaru Scorpions are going to stack up on each other so significantly that Odysseus bow passive should find some value, but it's hard to find any value when you're playing this far behind.
Yeah, it's going to be... look, Ice is fighting 3 levels up to try and kill off the Kamazats. Too much damage. That is getting returned towards
Ogi has no concern score.
Yeah,
this is wild.
Don't think I've seen a Kamazats this free. At least Hawk does a little bit on the end. This is going to be a big fight. Azriel just forced to try and stay alive. Great ult once again from Rotwin keeps them going, but now they have nothing to fall back on and the health bars are just too low. Davey gets to rotate in. It's 2 kills picked up by the Scorpions, and they are still chasing them down. Nice little stun comes out from the Ishtar, but Streak Up is just 1 hit away, and there's Davey with the double. Oki stays alive. A triple for the Freya, and only one person left standing. Ice is going to try their best to get a return kill, but is forced to run away. I mean, they're so low, and there's nothing this rat can do about it.
That was mechanically one of the best fights we've seen from Styx Ferrymen so far this game. Buttons were landing, and they were landing on multiple people. 3-man dunk from Ice in the middle of that fight. Streak Up applies his damage very well. I believe it was a 3-man ultimate from him as well. Azriel gets into that back line, finds multi-man with his stun. But the difference is, when we were calling for fights like that proactive style of play, it was when the game was even. Now we're 23 minutes in and you're 10,000 gold down, more so. You land everything, you just simply have not got the damage to apply it. Now that the itemization is there for Davey, he's going to out-lifesteal your DPS. Gunter doesn't really need to, but could just continually stand his ground and allow for the peel from Preds to be enough. Aprillium didn't have to concern himself even once with his positioning. Nobody's looking at the Bakasura. Just tough stuff. Styx Ferrymen, they've woken up 20 minutes in, but the Aaru Scorpions just too far ahead.
Yeah, the Scorpions were focused from minute one. And now, unfortunately, much like you said, it's just kind of it's a difficult uphill battle. I mean, you know, even when it was 2-2, it was suddenly like, okay, well, there's like 3,000 gold on the other side.
These odds are ridiculous.
Yeah, and so I mean, what are we even looking at? It's 15,000 gold, 5 people with Fire Giant, all of them auto attackers, by the way. Like if you're talking about siege potential, towers do not stand a chance.
And there's
here.
4 of them, by the way, 4 towers. Make that 3 as left has fallen down. That's all gold to push you even further ahead. Don't imagine we see the Styx Ferrymen really mount a defense on tier 2, lose a fight on a tier 2, you lose the game immediately afterwards. So I think it's probably best to just allow our Scorpions to work their way through these structures. Take your fight in the Phoenix where you've actually got a bit of help.
There. I thought it was going to be some aggression. No, it's just them forcing i-size to fall away. So a nice little opening created for the Scorpions. You had mentioned it, 4, now call it 1 tower left standing. And I guess I don't even know how, like, you can really just throw Ogi over into mid or Aprillium, I guess, on their own, because the 2 of them have done so much. The Bakasura just breakdancing in front of the Ferrymen because not feeling very threatened over there, I would assume. But this is where it's kind of awkward. If it's a like 30-minute Fire Giant, getting into the Phoenix always feels difficult, even with this amount of lead.
And it's not that difficult for them. The only real difficulty is Streak Up constantly applying this poke from a range, but Streak Up is not necessarily itemized to deal with this composition. He's Tank Shred, not a whole lot of tanks looking at him.
Yeah, but does do a lot of damage over there to Ogi, and a great pull coming down from Hawk. Unfortunately, Davey is just going to ult and fall back. There's going to be the ult from Preds. That's usually the go button, of course. As long as it gets thrown onto 2, we'll be fine. Stun going to be just off the mark from Azrael. There's going to be an engage from i-size. Double knock up onto the backline, but Azrael just gets melted. And Preds has spent the entire time tanking the Phoenix. It's going to open up so many opportunities. Ogi just rushing forward. 3 down for the Ferrymen. Left side Phoenix is gone. i-size again, the last one left standing, and nothing to be said about it. The Scorpions are going to take down the Titan and take game number 1.
That was a convincing win from the Aaru Scorpions. A team composition that would have, on paper, taken a whole lot longer to come online. Forces every fight throughout the early game, controls every single objective. A couple of those objectives probably just shouldn't have gone their way. It was a throw around that Pyromancer where there didn't seem to be a whole lot of cohesion on what the call was. Some people looking for the fight, some people looking for the objective. There's the Gold Fury that was stolen by a Fafnir, which is no cap my #1 pet peeve. Fafnir should not be taking things from you just about ever. But besides that, it was the Aaru Scorpions with the onus and with the control on the map, establishing that lead on their own.
And much to the point, I mean, one of the things that we've had, I think the Scorpions do incredibly well here, is the timetable it takes to do all that. They get a very good, comfortable lead, and a game that is half the time it takes most of the time to do the same thing in Europe. So I think that shows, I mean, immediate growth to me, and makes me really excited to see what game number 2 is going to be about. And that is something that we'll be getting into, along with all the stats and stuff, after we kick it to a quick break. So when we get right back, we'll be here with game number 2.
was it just a dream? The next day you called me up. You told me I'm your little buttercup. You came over and you fell into my arms. Well, I know what I feel. Please tell me our love is real. You make me smile when I think of you. If I am down or when I am blue, I can't get enough. You make me happy, I feel so fine. Oh, how I wish that you were mine. I can't get enough. Hopeless lover. I woke up all soaked in sweat, with chills running down my neck. I'm going crazy from just the thought of you. A long blonde hair and your beautiful smile. Your sense of humor makes it all worthwhile. Don't make me wait, it's not a funny game. You know just what I feel. Please tell me our love is real. You make me smile when I think of you. If I am down or when I am blue, I can't get enough. You make me happy, I feel so fine. Oh, how I wish that you were mine. I can't get enough. Hopeless lover, a hopeless lover. Hopeless lover. You make me smile when I think of you. If I am down or when I am blue, and I can't get enough. Can't get enough. I can't get enough. I can't get enough. You make me smile when I think of you. If I am down or when I am blue, I can't get enough. You make me happy, I feel so fine. Oh, I wish that you were mine. I can't get enough. Hopeless lover, hopeless lover.
Well, the nice, concise 1-0 victory. The Scorpions kick things off on this Thursday with a nice 20-25 minute win there over the Ferrymen. And Mifflin, this one was pretty, concise. I used the word for it, and that's the only one I can think of. They came in, they did the thing, they won.
You did my job for me. I
Well,
don't
you
even,
could
I don't even know what to
explain
say.
what was the thing they did. See, there's some room
Just
in there.
proactive play. It felt like for the first 10 or so minutes, the Styx Ferrymen were like, all right, guys, so like handshake agreement. We're going to farm up. It's going to be super chill, no kills. Don't worry about it. Nobody's going to really do objectives. And then we'll get to that late game team fight and, settle this like gentlemen. And, the other side was saying, why? Why wait that long? Like, even if we had waited that long, our composition is straight up better in the late game, so it would have been good for us, but also rather just play with a lead, and that's exactly what happens this time around. It was aggressive play from the Fafnir around early buff steals. Objectives went their way as well. Just felt like the Aaru Scorpions really could do no wrong.
And, well, they did no wrong, right? They come through. They have some very, very astounding team fights that go in their favor. I have to give a shout out to, I think, Ogi for a lot of that. I mean, by the time the Camazots started rotating, we got to see a lot more impactful play from that Camazots.
And I do want to bring this up as well. The reason that especially the Odysseus Bow build from Streak Up kind of went to my eye, Odysseus Bow plus kin size, is in-hand effects don't proc off of like the shotgun blast from Ishtar. You know what does? Crits. Crits work because those aren't in-hand effects, even though aggro would have you believe so. So it's just surprising to see him, one, not play into the strengths of Ishtar. Like I would love to have seen like a Wind Demon Deathbringer or something something along those lines. But also, when you look at the itemization from the other side, it was 4 squishies. I'd love to have some crit against some squishies, but instead it was a standard tank shred style build against literally only one tank, and that tank was Fafnir. And here's the thing about Fafnir. Dude's got a disarm. Like, he's not dealing with that consistent damage either way.
And one of his abilities, like, just kind of makes him immune to damage for a little bit of time while he transforms. That feels pretty good in a lot of circumstances. Yeah, and then, and I guess I should have looked more closely at some of the late game items, but, like, I saw the Witchblade I don't remember seeing any of the other stuff we highlighted, which maybe wouldn't have been as helpful. Maybe would have been nice if they had the gold for it. That might have been a big difference maker for them. We'll jump into picks and bans here for game number 2. Ferrymen once again being your first pick team. Last time they go Lancelot, Nemesis, Yamoja in their bans, and they grabbed Khepri first. And I don't know, I mean, Lancelot, we had a little bit of discussion around that. Maybe that's one that can be thrown out of the room. But the Khepri as a first pick wasn't necessarily bad, although Rotwin did not find themselves in very comfortable positions a lot of that game.
No, for the majority of the early game, Rotwin was utilizing his own ultimate, has an escape cord, a rip cord if you would, just, I'm out of position, I use the abduct to close gap, need to walk out, okay, well at least I've got Scarab's Blessing to make sure I get out of there, but Khepri at his best, and that's true of all supports, is when they're supporting their allies and not just helping themselves. Rotwin didn't often find himself in that position, but also it wasn't often that their team was the progenitor of the aggression, so that position would likely be hard to come by. Adaptations, though, Lancelot has made his way through so far. Could see whether or not that is going to be a selection that is prioritized by either side. I think he's fine. Lancelot is a strong pick. Don't get it twisted. It's just I don't think he's as dominant as was made out in game 1.
Yeah, for something that comes out in this like the initial ban right off the bat in a set. We'll see how much things change because from first ban to completely ignored now so far. Traded out for the Fafnir and the Khepri. So Nemesis available alongside all of those. Tyr, Hades, Guan Yu. Same bans from the Scorpions, just different order this time around. And it's a Freya first pick, Mifflin, alongside that matched by a Heimdall and a Camazotz. Now, if this was any other, honestly, just region in general, I'd probably ask you a lot of questions like why Heimdall, where is it going? But we have seen every single EU hunter not only likes it, but they've got a pretty damn good Heimdall in their pocket. All things considered, I mean, we call him and meme it old reliable for Zapman, but it feels like he's old reliable in Europe.
I mean, just blanket statement, Heimdall is good. He might not be dominating the meta currently because what we've seen be the meta for the duo lane is gods that are capable of fighting around the scepter. You want high aggressive, high DPS early game selections, the Medusas, the Cupids, things along those lines that could really get involved in that fight so that you can acquire that scepter, which should acquire you the rest of the neutral farm on the map because it gives you just an extra source of DPS throughout the early game, especially on your support who's very capable of getting in your face early on, which is why we generally see those aggressive picks. Heimdall doesn't exactly rank himself amongst those, but what he is incredibly safe, has high chunk damage. His auto attacks hit a little bit harder than just about everybody else's, and he's got decent wave clear with those cleave autos at that. So he's not exactly the best fighter, but certainly is very safe, nearly impossible to gank, CC immunity in the ultimate. He's always going to be consistent. I don't think, barring a complete rework, I don't think Heimdall's ever going to be a bad pick.
Yeah, I mean, how about feels very similar to Jing Wei in certain circumstances. Maybe just better, though, in general, than what she's going to bring. Terra locked in, not something that is uncommon, although, again, region-wise, Terra was being locked in Europe for a lot of these supports. I personally have always been a big Terra fan, but then you add in the recent meta and a lot of the kind of shifts we've seen in the support play. And it feels like she brings a lot to the table. Really good, consistent engage, healing. You've got that ult that is incredibly helpful. Just a lot of openers maybe there for the Scorpions. They ban out the Yu Huang and the Amus and Cobs. They're trying to deal with some mid lane matchups, which maybe kind of showcases that they're going to be changing up more of their game plan in the bottom two. And it's Baba Yaga on the other side, something that has been more of a mainstay over here in EU, alongside the Morrigan. That gets locked away. So again, some targeted mid lane bans.
Yeah, but there are still plenty of just strong mid laners out there. Thoth comes to mind as one that would fit either of these compositions very well. Vulcan has had a resurgence very recently and is the lock-in for the Aaru Scorpions. For those of you who haven't been reading patch notes or aren't completely in the know, no longer is Backfire considered a movement ability. And what does that mean? How does that reflect on the game? When Vulcan is crippled, he's still allowed to cast that first ability, which makes him very safe, gives him a good bit of damage, helps him out in just about every single circumstance. So, is it enough to make him a top pick, top ban? Well, it would seem so, considering how often we've seen him in the SPL. It's only these small changes. That's all it takes to take some of these middling gods up to the next level. Vulcan has been the most recent recipient of these small changes.
And you know what? It's one of those changes that, again, feels really, really solid. If the Bakasura was on the other side, I think there'd be a very easy conversation to be had about, oh, hey, look at this nice big cripple field. It's not going to slow him down. Unfortunately, well, or fortunately, I guess it depends on how you feel about how Aprillium played it last game.
All right.
Guess what? It's going to be reprising its role here for the Scorpions. And so maybe doesn't give the easy conversation, but does give us something to look at here in game number 2. And Scorpions leading 1-0 over the Ferrymen. That being said, Mifflin, if I put a pause on the right-hand side of the screen, while there's a lot of good, I think, that the Scorpions just have, the Ferrymen got away with a very, very solid draft going into this.
Yeah, I like this Ferryman composition a good deal. You've got a very aggressive soul laner that should be able to hold his own against just about everybody, and King Arthur will likely get that Discordia passive, so has a decent amount of early kill pressure. Once we get over to like level 6, level 7, it's going to be nearly impossible for anybody to kill a Camazotz in lane, especially if they decide to itemize a little bit more so towards that tankiness. Didn't see that last time. Ogabri went legitimately just an assassin build with a shield in the previous match. Could see a reprisal of that, as it will be likely a Transcendence in that first slot. Otherwise, you've got a pretty aggressive fight lane between Freya and Horus, and Ice on one of his signature picks.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a fun one to maybe try and turn around for them. One thing I was maybe expecting from Rotwin was some early aggression when you have a warrior over here. Even if Freya maybe isn't known necessarily for hitting the hardest early on.
I think she is nowadays.
Yeah, nowadays. You're right. That's one misconception that I need to get out of my brain, because that has not been the case for 2 months.
You've got 8 years of data saying Freya bad early.
And then 3 months of data that say, actually, wait, hold on.
Real good always.
Yeah. And even right there you can see where maybe some of this turnaround is going to be. Again, Streak Up's damage can be really solid. Rotwin as well. I mean, that stun shreds prots, right? If you're Freya, that's going to be great for you in terms of just making sure some of that early damage is just even stronger.
Yeah, you're not too concerned about prots at this portion of the game, though. It really is just about the CC from Fracture early on. I have liked to see how Preds has decided to play this game. Every time Rotwin has gone in aggressively, tries to deal some damage to Davy, Pred says, word, I'm going to walk onto your Freya. I'm going to make sure Streak Up can't follow up, and she can't walk away from me either because of Terra's passive. Every single time one of those structures is up, be it the second or third ability, not only are you knock-up immune, but also you essentially have Frostbound autos. You deal a little bit of a slow every single time you're able to connect with one of those auto attacks. And Freya, not exactly the most mobile, doesn't really have any great ways to deal with that at this portion of the game.
Really wondering, so First Blood last time around, there were a lot of opportunities for it. And a couple of skirmishes. I see Azrael's health bar. That's kind of what sparks my brain on this one. A lot of opportunities, I think, sub 10 minutes, but I think it was at that 11-minute mark, if I remember correctly, is when the fight ended up kind of breaking out. Maybe it was a little bit later than that, but a lot of patience from these teams. Or maybe just good disengage. Oof. A lot of that was because of the Khepri. You had mentioned that ult kind of allowing you to make a mistake if things go wrong for you, and that happened in mid lane around some mid camps. Ferrymen don't have that safety capability. What they do have instead is a lot of very good CC in that mid 3v3. I mean, the Najat stun, you've got the Strife from Discordia, you've got the stun and a good knock-up from Rotwin whenever they end up joining that mid lane. And so it feels like there's going to be more opportunities for the Ferrymen to just make a fight happen.
But Aprillium has shown a propensity, at least in Game 1, to avoid rotating towards duo lane, does generally stick around that mid lane for the 3v3 if it happens. And a whole lot of the initiation, a whole lot of the aggression from Styx Ferryman is going to be contingent on Rotwin, starting up those fights, be it with Fracture or with a knockup. Good luck closing that gap if Aprillium's there. That Regurgitate ultimate, the massive cripple field, is just so powerful at shutting down a Horus. Could be that we see Rotwin force pretty consistently to use that ultimate defensively. I am keeping my eyes on that. Otherwise, I think that Ice really is going to have a difficult time finding these opportunities as well. Ice is a player that loves fighting around the jungle, loves fighting around these neutral objectives, at least in the past. Good luck initiating and getting that proper amount of follow-up from a Discordia up against this composition, because what the Aaru Scorpions are very good at is dive aggression. If you take Gunter up into the air, Preds and Aprillium are just going to run down Hawk and make sure that Golden Apple doesn't connect off of return of the Windfire wheels.
I keep looking up at Rotwin. He's always like surrounded by two, and I'm like waiting for the shoe to drop where something's going to happen for him. Or to him. Nothing. There's going to be the root. There's a whoop. Everything balanced out overall. Good stuns. Good ults. Maybe. Just a little bit of damage. Aprillium was rotated over. Purple buff is going to be the target for the jungler. And there's not going to be anything you can do about it. Look, a full Golden Blade Bakasura with his 2-up. Yeah, that jungle clear was easy.
That's what we were talking about a little bit earlier on in the set. It's first, second purple buff, that's between the duo lane. Third purple buff spawn, jungler can get involved, and Aprillium does exactly that, just sneaks it away, while the Styx Ferrymen were concerned more so with the engagement. Do lose out on that Valkyrie's discretion, though, as Aprillium gets active.
There's going to be a nice ult, but not able to lock down Ice, barely able to escape himself, and going to be able to heal up just barely off of that offering camp. Mifflin, that's a very similar stage to what we saw in game number 1. 2 obnoxiously low health bars. Just barely able to escape. Preds shouldn't be in too much danger here. He's going to be able to walk away. But that's going to be the trade, and I think kind of the careful nature these junglers have to balance out.
Yeah, Ice was in a very precarious situation there. Gets forced out. Isn't allowed to use that ultimate aggressively, and expect to see that a lot from Aprillium, just trying to make sure that Ice is mitigated in efficacy in some of these engagements. Surprised to see that Aprillium wasn't willing to use that jump aggressively to finish off that kill. When it's this early on in the game and no deaths have happened, getting first blood is worth your life, at least in my opinion. Maybe Aprillium doesn't feel the same way.
Preds knocked up, stunned out. This is looking like it should be a clean kill, but no, the dash is good. The ult is strong. You've got to be going in if you're the Horus. Does make a selection. Ice leaves the target and is going to get the sash, get the kill, get first blood over there for the Ferrymen. Can they continue a little bit more? It's a good stun onto Aprillium. No one really nearby to help out. So it's just going to be the first blood and a nice little invade to get some experience off the back.
Really good wherewithal from Ice there to walk out of the Horus ultimate. Rotwin does cut off the path. Ice from his current position notices, oh, this isn't going to connect. A good juke, able to identify that Preds wasn't really going to get hit by that ultimate. Walks out and says, well, I'll just get him myself, and does exactly that. Very smart play from the Naja. A lot of players there just kind of stick with their Horus.
Heimdall gets out of here.
That's why EU likes him, by the way.
Yeah, what to just like dash
and we're gone.
Just get out of there as fast as possible. Yeah, it feels really good when you're that safe. And it looks like Preds, I don't know, it feels like they want something, but it's just, can they get something? There's going to be a root. They have vision on Rotwin. The jungler's over here, but there's just not too much they can do with the lack, admittedly, of CC that they had on the same targets they were aiming for. And it does kind of feel like, I mean, when I see Bakasura, it still feels very late game. Can be active. I mean, we've seen that. And the Vulcan feels like he just gets better with time. Not necessarily something that's like bad early, just really strong once he has some items under his belt. So I'm not too surprised to see the Scorpions maybe waiting on this one. Maybe need some help, though.
Oof.
Up into the air goes Gunter, comes crashing down. Hawk scoops him up, no problem, gets a kill.
Styx Ferrymen have completely 180'd their methodology for the match so far in Game 2. Game 1, it was couldn't buy a fight in the first 10 minutes. This time around, it's forcing every engagement as Streak Up drops Preds real low there. Preds playing around the fact that he knows Streak Up doesn't have that Valkyrie's Discretion available, so there was no real risk of death, but probably still surprised by the amount of damage this Freya is already doing with just one ring.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's exactly what you said, right? You've got so many years, or at least I've got so many years of, oh, Freya can't do much early. And then suddenly you see one ring Freya, small buff to the pulse early on, makes a big difference. Rotwin trying to get out of here, can't get out of there. The Scorpions gang up on the Horus in the jungle, punish them for the aggression.
It's a fine line between aggression and inting, and I'd argue that is a small example of the delineation there. Rotwin just a bit too aggressive.
There's going to be a nice stun. Ice is just gone. Azrael follows very quickly thereafter. And what a great pickup for him. Yeah, you would think Pyro spawning in 3 seconds.
Surely they go Pyro.
They go for the blue buff.
That's a 3-piece pickup.
They're getting aggressive.
You're all there. You got
the
auto attack jungle. We're not doing it? Okay.
Not doing it.
I mean, you just got a 3-piece pickup. Everybody's still dead. Ice Ice is still in the grayscale. There it is. Okay.
It took a little bit, but they got there.
This is dangerous now, though. They waited so long to start. It's on half HP, but Rotwin's close by.
Rotwin is going to just walk forward. Oh, no, not going to be able to get in there in time. Just enough. I want to argue like obnoxious CCs, like the slows, things like that, coming out from Ogi and the rest of the Scorpions to make sure that that one doesn't happen. Pyromancer gets scooped up. Mifflin, we're starting to talk about an early lead, not a very large one, though, because it's really just been scooping back what was the early pickup for the Ferrymen with that first blood and all the other things that started this game. The Scorpions now find themselves about 1,000 gold ahead, but as you saw, it was just shy. 1,400 experience, though, and that one's maybe where they're going to feel it more.
Yeah, it was a 2,000 gold and experience swing play.
Yeah.
That was completely off the back of Rotwin going over-aggressive, putting himself in a poor position, allowing the Aaru Scorpions not only to get their own buff, but also to pick up that kill. And the Styx Ferrymen, sure, Ice Ice can say, man, Rotwin, what are you doing? Why are you playing up there? Now we're at a disadvantage on the fight. But the decision from the Styx Ferrymen, having seen 3 members of the Aaru Scorpions in cold blood, in broad daylight on the center of the map, murder your support 15 feet away, say, yeah, we can still go for a blue buff invade. Absolutely not. You did not need to force that fight. Sure, blame Rotwin. Rotwin gets picked, sure. But the decision-making between Azrael and Ice Ice to go for the invade regardless, with complete information on the positioning of the Aaru Scorpions, I would argue is worse than the mistake that Rotwin made. Rotwin didn't know there were going to be 3 there. The others did.
Well, Preds has to play this carefully. Gunter gets hit by the apple. Oh my god, Preds is able to walk away with barely any HP to their name. Gunter still just fine despite the ult getting hit. A lot thrown out there by the Ferrymen, and yet the Scorpions just get to walk away.
Scorpions doing a good job of knowing when to hold them and when to fold them, and that was a clear fold them situation.
Get out.
Yeah, had Hawk had just a little bit more damage output there, maybe even a tier 1 item, likely would have turned that one around. Aprillium, though, he's in some trouble.
Okay, there's some damage. And that's what's been necessary. And waiting. Ice Ice finally able to get rid of Aprillium. Retaliated double kill earlier for the Bakasura. It's going to be a small little shutdown. Still a little shutdown for them. And that's a kind of the opposite play of before, right? Before it was, oh no, we can't get anything, let's get out. That one was, cool, we got the thing, get out as fast as possible. Get the kill, keep it clean, and don't over-risk anything. Streak up. Has to play this carefully. Good walls, great beads coming down from the Freya. With the ult down, felt like there could have been maybe a little more aggression, but Preds falls back. The Scorpions are going to let that one lie.
I like the idea from Aprillium in that small engagement. Says, look, I'm Bakasura, I'm Golden Blade. I'll just walk in, do a ton of damage to this purple buff, eat it, and disengage. Wasn't quite prepared for the fact that there would be 4 members of Styx Ferrymen there. Positioning very aggressively again, by the way. Returning to the scene of the crime. There was a major swing last time a fight happened. Exactly here. Aaru Scorpions, though, they're not as grouped as previously.
Yeah, they're going to unfortunately get caught out one. And maybe one more time. Aprillium does get away this time. Gunter's over there for a little bit of extra damage. But it's not going to result in any crazy fights. The Pyromancer has been the biggest thing that has separated these two teams. Mifflin still about 900 gold favoring the Scorpions. Nothing too insane if you are the Ferryman to try and deal with. And the experience has been brought down to a very, very manageable position. I mean, you're talking nothing separating these two teams. Maybe a couple of camps of minion or something in the jungle. As Ice Ice is going to take a little extra time to hit 13. And kind of balancing that out as the solo laner. Azrael on this King Arthur. And this is where we can maybe shift, because last time it felt like the Scorpions get a very solid early lead. And then they transformed it to a comfortable mid lead that just, I mean, for lack of a better term, snowballed into a great late game lead. I mean, they played it very well. Get a couple steals they maybe shouldn't have, things like that. Who, at this point, has the strengths when the game is this even?
At this portion of the match, you're looking at initiators. When the game is completely even, and this is true of every match of SMITE, I think that the game is almost always dictated by frontliners. Those who choose the fight and when to take them and can start them off on the right foot will always be the ones to find you an advantage if you aren't able to find that advantage by macro game. So that means experience and gold. If that's equalized, it's all about play on field.
There's some aggression. Ice, good sash up into the sky just in time. Gets rid of the jungler and is able to stay out alive. Good healing from the rest of the team. Make sure that Ice is able to get away with murder in this instance. The Ferrymen, once again, they get in, they get the pick, and they're able to get out safely.
Lots of bounty on Ice in the future, though. Naja going to be worth a good amount. Also, a Gold Fury would be worth a good deal here. Aaru Scorpions hovering nearby.
There's some aggression immediately into the back line. Davey has to play this one safe. Heimdall feeling pretty safe, but has to use the ult to get the disengage. The Aegis already down. Robwin looking for a stun. Taking too much damage in the process. Able to escape with the help of a heal. And that keeps them going. Azriel. It's King Arthur, so I don't have too much worries right there for them. So the Ferrymen making sure that they don't get maybe too aggressive, even with the single pick. The Scorpions are able to put up a decent defense. Mifflin, though, it's same amount of gold. I mean, the experience is really where things matter at this point, but the gold is not really shifting despite these kills.
No, gold staying largely equalized. I wouldn't say that either one of these compositions has so significant an advantage over the other in the late game that it's like game one and that you have to get active. It gets active nonetheless, though. Preds just going to die here. Easy pickup for Styx Ferrymen. Around a Gold Fury this early on. Pyromancer alive on the other side of the map. I'd like to see Styx Ferrymen kind of heat check Aaru Scorpions. Go to the Gold Fury and say, look, we've got a significant advantage. 20 seconds left until Preds respawns. Pretty decent DPS. Start the objective and check how the Aaru Scorpions respond. Are we going to show up and try and slow down this objective or go to Pyromancer on the other side? As of now, it's just a straight up reset to neutral. I suppose concerned about the fact that Streak Up has utilized the majority of his mana already, won't be able to stick around in this fight.
We'll see if Ice can make it out of here before I ask you the question. I was thinking, what a shot from Gunter! I did not think that was going to connect, but just barely on the edge is Ice. And a clean, at-range ult from the mid laner for the Scorpions gets them a kill. And that feels so good. You have to imagine if you're Gunter there, not only putting yourself on the board, being able to shut down someone who has been very problematic for your team. And that's where I was going to ask. I mean, last time around, we're sitting around and specifically talking a lot about the burn potential, right? You've got 3 auto attackers. If you're the Scorpions, I mean, that's great around objectives, around towers, etc., etc. You don't quite have that on either of these squads. I guess technically you have it maybe a little more on the Scorpions because Bakasura exists. But, you know, like Naja, I guess the Discordia, like, they've got good damage. But as far as, like, quick burn, including the Freya, do they have enough on the side of the Ferrymen to try and go for that Gold Fury?
I think the Ferrymen, had Freya had a little bit more mana, absolutely have the advantage and enough DPS to go for Gold Fury. We were already talking about how much damage the Freya is doing currently.
Good point.
But on the other side, sure, you've got Bakasura, and that's amazing. Bakasura does enough DPS to an objective to make up for a Hunter not being there. But you've also got Vulcan. Vulcan turret just slams, and he slams
Vulcan
continually.
Turret do be doing
good work. It's one of the best objective burn style of picks in the game. So I would like to see just a lot more objective-focused play. This is, I believe, thrice now, this match, where somebody dies at 0 cost to one of these teams, be it the Ferrymen or the Aaru Scorpions, and neither side has decided to just look at the objective. Neither side has decided to force that engagement. Like, even there, for example, Phenomenal Ultimate from Gunter puts one down for 28 seconds. You have the opportunity to look at the Pyromancer, and it goes unchecked.
It's those small windows that we've definitely been missing out on from both of these squads. Last time it felt like the Scorpions were able to take advantage of it a little bit better. This time we'll see what they can do. Gold has not shifted pretty much at all. Instead, I'm going to be looking towards like itemization, things like that in my mind on the build. Bakasura, Executioner, Chin Size picked up. You've got the Chin Size now finished for the Heimdall as well. And so it feels like being Rotwin and or Azriel in this instance is just not going to be necessarily good time. In mid, you've got your Soul Reaver finished for Gunter. A lot of good damage. Going to be matched by Hawk on the other side, though. And so it does feel like there's a nice little balancing board. I mean, being able to look down, itemization, mostly similar between the two. But the Naja just has way more opportunities to just pick a fight than a Bakasura does.
Yeah, Bakasura a little bit more slow on the uptake, takes a little while to get all those auto attacks through, whereas Naja, it's, hey, I took you up into the air. If you live it, awesome, good for you. If you don't, I won the fight, and nobody was able to return damage to me during Windfire Wheels, removing himself from the playfield so valuable. The double-edged sword being, hey, I used my ultimate, you beadsed it, now I'm stuck with you. And really, Naja is not the absolute best boxer in situations like that. So, surprised and pleasantly surprised that Ice has found such success with Windfire Wheels so far. Feels like every single time he's gone in with it, it's either connected, and there was just never been a beads answer. They've either been up, and the Aaru Scorpion's a little bit too slow to utilize them, or this has been down, thanks to that phenomenal play from Rotwin so far this game, just going with that fracture every single time and burning through those defensive relics.
It feels like it's making up for last game, right? Like last game we were like, hey, you're on Rat, like let's see it, like just one of these ults, let's just see it be the engage. And it never happened. But so far this time, a lot of sashes, a lot of ults, like you said, that have been admittedly surprisingly successful in certain circumstances. I'm thinking of that one over on left where like goes up with no health, comes down, and is just able to survive enough, thanks to a little bit from Rotwin there, making sure the team could continue forward. Hasn't really been super proactive over the last couple of minutes, and that's not saying anything negative. It's been a lot of jungle camp priority, standard farming. But we are hitting this point. Over on left lane, Davey, wow, no, trying to go for the fight, has to ult, might not even be able to get away with the streak up, just outright winning this engagement. One more shot, and that's all it takes. You get the kill, and the fray is off to a good start with a solo.
Yeah, Davey just, I suppose, saying, hey, look, you had to use Pulse to clear wave. No way you've got enough time on it to also kill me. Incorrect. It only takes about 3 auto attacks because she's swinging for upwards of 350 per. Beads forced off a Perillium. Can Ice survive? It does. Takes him up to the air.
Yeah, nice crits already. Look at the damage on that one. Does fall down to their demise. And Rotwin has to fall back. So it's 1 for 1, Davey, for Ice.
Just soloing it?
Ogi's just soloing a Pyromancer. You have to play this carefully, though. Azriel's here.
Reset,
and Azriel's going to walk forward. You need to reset it. You're letting him get the time, but it doesn't matter.
What?
He's able to secure that one. Azriel, a little mistimed on where those abilities come through. Ogi still has ult. I'm not expecting a lot to come from this follow-up kill. Gets a pick, and then in the 1 for 1, I mean, Mifflin, it's favoring the Scorpions, even in looking at the gold. I mean, 2,600. It's not massive, but it's still something.
Yeah, I mean, I'll break down what you're supposed to do there real quick as Azriel. When you're in a situation like that, realizing that Ogre had already used the burst, start with the stun. Start with a stun as King Arthur. Not only are you going to deal damage to the objective and put it into kill range for your own ability, but you're also removing the ability for Ogre to interact with the game while they're stunned. Instead, just a little bit of a hyper focus from Azriel on stealing the objective with the first ability. Mistimes it, Ogre able to take that one very easily. That was an incredibly dangerous situation for Camazotz to put the team into. Had Ogre, or had rather Azriel played that properly, Ogre would have cost his team the entirety of the lead, just about. But instead, gets lucky and is able to push himself a bit further ahead. Otherwise, the Aaru Scorpions, again, just very well played. Gunter utilizing his own ultimate off the back of Windfire Wheels, that double-edged sword of, hey, you go up to the air, but it's predictable for everybody. We know how long you're going to be up there regardless of which team you're on. And that's something that Ice is going to have to consider going forward in just about every single one of these fights. I'd almost expected him to pick up an Aegis for that exact interaction. Every single time Windfire Wheels is used, as long as Gunter knows where it started, Gunter's going to be able to punish you for it.
Speaking of Gunter, might be able to punish this. No, that's going to be leashed. Gold Fury was started up by the Ferrymen. Streak Up's going to hang out on it, but better secure. I mean, Vulcan ult's just stronger at this. If it's going to come out at all, no, they don't fire it. And instead, it's just going to be a kill, traded out for the Fury. Rotwin goes down. Davey, credit for that one.
Go fire, maybe?
Meanwhile, they scoop up a very clean pick, but with, actually not using the Vulcan ult. You've just got stronger secure and a numbers advantage. It feels like you can get something to happen. Seems like they might be looking for a kill. Streak Up is the target right now. Gunter with a very short ult. And a lot of, I'm going to just throw them out there as question marks from the Scorpions on that one. I don't know what they expected they were going to get, but now the answer is just a tier 1, and if they're lucky, something more.
But that aggression from Ogrebree essentially sheepdogs the Styx Ferrymen. You see 3 stack on the left-hand side. You know for a fact Streak Up's going back to base. It does cost you your numbers advantage. Rotwin had the opportunity to respawn, but you still do have the ability to move in towards that fire, force a rotation.
Well, they're going to start it up. Azrael is going to be the target. The big one that is off the board to me is this Vulcan ult. Not having that just yet means secure and teamfight is going to be a little more difficult. Up into the sky, through the realms, there goes the Horus, comes crashing back down. Streak Up is in a lot of trouble. Streak Up doesn't have the Aegis, but Ogi still able to get it, even though misses a little bit at the end. Hawk chased down, taken out, Rotwin gone as well. And what was a 1-man number advantage, now they've made it 3, and the Scorpions have a controllable lead.
Good play from the Scorpions. And pulling the Fire Giant forced the Styx Ferrymen to respond immediately, and you cannot respond in numbers when you're forced to go in. So it was essentially a 1-man army of V Azrael trying to slow down that fight, incapable of doing so. Ice blinks forward, forced to use that ultimate defensively there. Had he not, likely would have just cost himself his own life. Aaru Scorpions with a significant advantage still. 3 dead for at least 10 more seconds. Pick up a tier 1. Likely will move in towards the tier 2 as well.
Plus the FG.
Yeah, plus FG. Ice can at least take this tier 1 tower in mid if he so chooses instead. Red buff seems to be the target. I'd like to see him get a little bit of global gold for his team. If not in mid, at least in the duo lane.
Yeah, see? I mean, that's a chunky minion wave there in mid. So it might get the work done for him. And like you said, maybe pushing up over in duo, gets the red buff, takes away the purple. Tier 1 in mid does go down. So
He's
a little
genius.
bit of global gold.
I wouldn't have trusted my minions.
Yeah, no, I honestly, did you see how many were left? I don't know that I'm trusting them either. Very narrow area, but is still able to get that lot of experience. And at this point, Mifflin, this feels like a play for Ice. Admittedly, you had mentioned global gold. I'm going to say this one's a selfish play for the team, which is that hit level 20 as fast as possible, get the gold, get your upgraded starter as fast as possible. I feel like that's where Ice's mind is at.
Yeah, he really, legitimately, it's, hey, I'm going to scrounge for farm on the map because they've got Fire Giant and I'm not going to be able to do it now that they've grouped up again. So I got to hit 20 before I head back to base this time. Otherwise, I'm going to spend all my time just defending the base from this onslaught. Tier 1 tower on left does go down. Aaru Scorpions, 2-man core of Gunter and Davey. Able to take that one. Tier 2 should follow suit. It's a very large gold swing immediately for the Aaru Scorpions, but that gold has not been spent just yet. Golden Pocket makes not for a lead. So long as the Aaru Scorpions stay out on the field, the Styx Ferrymen have still got a pretty decent opportunity in the team fight. Tier 2 in mid goes down as well. Again, that gold has done nothing for the Scorpions as of now. I'd like to see them maybe head back to base, head back to Pyro, grab that one, spend the gold, then step up and try and take out this Phoenix. But instead, they'd like to go now.
It's a split, 3-2 for the Scorpions. And immediately, I'm thinking healing from Preds, and specifically Gunter's turret maybe playing into this. But you had mentioned it, gold in hand does not make for items in pocket. And yet, here they go, back
It's like
from
one in the hand or 2 in the bush, like that age-old adage.
Yeah, you've got 2.
They've got 2 in the bush. And I'd like to have them, or have them have 1 in the hand, yeah.
And well, hey, guess what? They went and they got the 1 in the hand. An Obsidian Shard finish here for Gunter. And if you're looking at power specs, I mean, you're now talking, admittedly, just like straight up 1 tier 3 for, I believe, both jungle and mid on the side of the Scorpions. Yeah, that is just beyond what the other side has.
It is. Now you can wait for the Primal Fury, pick that one up as well, get ready for this next Fire Giant. Aaru Scorpions playing very patiently around their gold lead and now find themselves in a very similar position as they were in Game 1, now 28 minutes in as opposed to 20 in the previous match. But Styx Ferrymen this time around, I feel like I've got a better opportunity to fight on the defensive. They've got a bit more damage. Hawk with the Obsidian Shard now finished up has hit a very significant power spike. So just connect that ultimate off the back of maybe a Windfire Wheels. You're trading Ice anytime he uses Windfire Wheels, by the way. It's a completely squishy build. He's going to get hit by an Earthshaker every single time. But so long as you're finding that 1-for-1 trade, I'd call that value for the Naja. But that is contingent on Hawk being able to find those ultimates, and so far has been struggling to do so thanks to the dive of the Aaru Scorpions. Scorpions, though, they've got time to play with. Haven't moved in towards that Primal Fury as of yet. Maybe waiting for the timer to get a little bit closer to that Fire Giant. I think it would be a good use of their time, though, instead of just posturing on the map. They're keeping the minion waves pushed up, but without fire, you're not really generating that much threat.
Yeah, you're just kind of there. 11,000 gold, though. I mean, like, you've got enough that maybe if you force to fight, I don't think they're getting under that Phoenix anytime soon. That's not happening. But like if I don't know if Azrael just like decides to try and fight. Actually, at this point, it might be better for the Ferrymen because they've got a 5v3 advantage in mid. The other two are dancing over on the right-hand side. Maybe some wards coming out. So I guess if we move this fight, and theoretically it's going to, forward and out of the base, I'm assuming you're still favoring the Scorpions just based on what we've seen and you know, gold lead when it comes down to it. But where do the Ferrymen, like, where are they starting to look to kind of crack this eggshell and get back into this?
I'd be Omega W keying right now. There's 3 people essentially standing on your Phoenix line. You don't have eyes on the other 2. And you know for a fact there's, like, no wards in pocket either.
Yeah, that and you see, like, they've got ward coverage in the jungles right there. Like, you know they're not right next to you.
I would have loved to see the Ferrymen take that fight immediately instead. It's Aaru Scorpions who are just Hail Marrying the fire?
Well, it's going to go down. Scorpions are able to get it, and they get the kill onto Rotwin, so it doesn't seem like things are going poorly for him. Azrael up into the skies with Davy, but that does not last long. They lose Ogi, but at what cost? Well, they get themselves a Fire Giant, they get themselves 2 kills, and now the chase is on from the Scorpions. Can they find a little bit more to make this worth their while? Seems like they're going to have to fall back, push up minions. It's a 4v3 for another 30 seconds.
Crazy that works out for the Scorpions because that was a coin toss legitimately. Had the Scorpions just backed up to Primal, they would have had an advantage, gone back to base, got some wards. They could have won the Vision battle as well. Instead, just posture around that mid Phoenix, but now with the numbers advantage, try and take down the right.
It's good aggression onto it. Enhanced Fire Giant at that, so it should be a pretty quick Phoenix.
Should be.
Once they start throwing the damage in there, and there it is. Right-hand side, cracked open. And then it's just the figure out what next part, right? And you had mentioned this before, but any gold that you've gotten over the last couple of minutes, since they haven't gone back to the base, is going to be sitting in their pockets, but this would be an easy time to scoop up the Pyromancer on the fallback, fade away, spend the 2,000 gold 4 of you have, and then get aggressive somewhere. Maybe it's on left, maybe it's in mid, but somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, get aggressive on the left side of the map, right? I mean, that
Yeah.
the traditional Smite knowledge says you want to fight on the Phoenix that is furthest away from the Fire Giant, so that even if you do not end the game, so long as you take down the bird, you should have an advantage moving into the objective afterward. But so far, the Aaru Scorpions have taken a very curious approach to this one. Should be able to, as you said, go back to base, spend up all that gold, finish up some of this itemization. If you could afford it, like to see him pick up elixirs, power pots as well, because in this position, the Aaru Scorpions are thinking to themselves, next fight ends the game. We want to win on next engagement. We've got a lot of time to play with Fire Giant. We've got a lot of lead. Let's go ahead and pick up every bit of strength we can. Even if you can't finish up your build, if you can't finish up that 6-tier item, which is not a concern for them, at least pick up that power pot if you think this is going to end the match. Fortunately, every single starter item as well as 6-tier item has been finished, as well as elixirs, powers, wards, power potions. The Aaru Scorpions
you want to
are
talk
coming
about
at
power spikes.
yeah, they're coming at full strength right now. The Styx Ferrymen, this is going to be the most difficult fight they've had so far this game with the largest disparity. Buffs controlled by Aaru Scorpions, no buffs over to the Styx Ferrymen as their jungle has been invaded, and Fire Giant on 4 members of the Scorpions. It's all about how do you approach this siege, and I think it's one note. Can you make it through Hawk's ultimate and Ice's ultimate? If those 2 abilities go down, the Aaru Scorpions' job is a lot easier. So if I'm them, play slow, force out those resources, then full in engage on the team fight. Just got to take away these small little win conditions from the Styx Ferrymen.
I'm trying to watch the split for these two right now. Both solo laners hovering around the wall. Jungle's over in mid. Ice has to go deal with fire minions, though. So that is going to cause a little bit of trouble for them. And that's always the pain when you lose a Phoenix that fast. Somebody's got to be playing defense. Otherwise, that Titan will take a lot of damage. Although in this case, it's just a small amount being thrown over there towards Ice. So left side Phoenix, like you said, you know, you've got to try and pull these resources out. If Ice is elsewhere, you can kind of like ignore maybe that ult for a little bit. and it's just trying to get Hawk's ults to come out and create a separation for you. Do they like how badly do they have to wait on? Like if they just like decide they want to go in, could they theoretically steamroll the team fight and the Phoenix, or is that like it's almost too risky to step forward?
You are capable of initiating the fight. You can just poke damage into the Phoenix with the Enhanced Fire Giant. Like you've got a standard hunter, so that's one way to do it. But you can start up the fight in true initiation, but you need to make sure that fight is started on top of Hawk, and it's someone that's capable of tanking it.
Oh.
Like Ogre.
Yeah, you can just go ahead and have someone tank it, get a kill on the Rotwin pretty easily, go forward, and look for a couple of kills. Azrael, low, does make it back to the fountain. Same thing for Streak Up. But the left side Phoenix is no more. Mid Phoenix is no more. Fire minions on the Titan, and the numbers advantage there for the Scorpions. All it'll take. A little bit of an opening for them. The Titan's just taking too much damage at this point. You have to fight if you are the Ferryman, but you have no time to work with. The Scorpions come in, find themselves a 2-0 in a very clean way.
Tough one for the Styx Ferrymen, who had control throughout that early game, though, Gore. I mean, it was just that one fumble around the speed buff and the blue buff.
Yeah.
It was Rotwin stepping up a little bit too far, loses his life, then his team says, well, we didn't need him anyway, and try and 2v3 on the blue. Probably not their best play, because up until that point, it was completely controlled by the Styx Ferrymen. Immediately afterward, felt like all the wind was taken out of their sails, man. It was a clean win for the Aaru Scorpions.
Both times, very similar, it feels like, in terms of pacing, right? A couple of early game fights, things are still even overall, and then something just happens to fade out of control for the Ferrymen, spiraling almost into control for the Scorpions, and then spiraling into absolute control for the Scorpions. A lot of this one, I have to say, I have to give credit over to Ogi, because, I mean, credit where credit's due, right? That Camazot's created a lot of space, even at the very end, was able to do a ton. But this double kill, and maybe that was kind of the start of it, that was the first time the Scorpions felt like they fought back, and it was after that play, I believe they get the Pyromancer pretty soon. That's where it started, right? The beginning of the end. It just took a while. That kill in mid also sincerely helped them out, just making sure things stayed a little more level for the Scorpions.
Yeah, keep your eyes on Gunter. He found a lot of really impactful ultimates. This is something Ice had to have been concerned about every single time he took someone up into the areas. Okay, well, the follow-up from the other team's better than my team's follow-up, because Vulcan ultimate can't be blocked.
Yep.
Whereas Golden Apple, you just have Ogre stand in front of it. You have Pred stand in front of it, and then drag it away from the rest of the team. Just tough stuff for Styx Ferrymen, as, again, Gunter completely decimates a team fight with a 3-man Earthshaker in that last clip. Just would have liked to see them play a little bit more intelligently around the lead while they had it. Styx Ferrymen, very capable, and a team that has continually been very capable of establishing those leads. It's just, controlling the match afterward. A lot of people throw around the buzzwords Snowball and Smite. I think this is a match, and maybe even the Solar Scares at times are perfect examples of really Snowball can be stopped.
Yeah, so, in this case, Scorpions come in, knock down 2-0, very, very good control for them. Game 1 maybe a little faster than Game 2, but they get there nonetheless, the Ferrymen being a blockade for them. But either way, kicking things off in Europe in a very strong way on Thursday. Looking great for them. And if I remember correctly, for the standings-wise, moving themselves up to 2-1, I think a very good look, especially when you're looking at this, again, Road to Worlds, grand scheme picture. You want to be finding as many wins, not only here as you possibly can, but that is going to affect your morale, I have to imagine, as well as just your experience going into the SCC, SOC, Road to Worlds matchups that'll be happening in December. If you want your opportunity to be able to be the top 4 there, you got to do well here, and I think this is a really good kickoff for them to start things off. So a nice 2-0 just to start the day for the Scorpions. And then some still very interesting matchups, I think, that are going to be happening in Europe, right? Mambo and Gladiators a little bit later on, the Wargs and the Ravens. I think being able to see some of these teams, the undefeated ones, maybe more eye-catching at the moment, because you got to lose eventually. It's just the question of when will it happen, and will it be to each other, or will we see Mambo, or maybe the Ravens, since they're still touching that USEG in the lost column, be the ones to survive this phase without dropping a single set. We'll all have to see that and everything that comes up here in Europe after this quick break.